So giving you some background on the Southern IPM Center and what happened in the past 4 years, we're starting off with our previous project. Here's what happened in the last 4 years and kind of our perspective of that. And that's going to flow very well into the new project and what was making us think about the changes that we were considering. We're going to talk a little bit about, don't be afraid, the logic model that we went through, because it highlights some of what we were thinking as we put this together. Some minor changes to the advisory council just to make things go a little smoother, and covering not only grants and IPM data, but our signature programs. And we'll be ending today with talking about our November meeting, so you know what to expect when we get there. So in our previous project, the sections I'm going to focus on are the grants. We have grant programs for seed, capstone, and working group projects that people put in annually. And we also have critical and emerging issue grants. It's kind of the emergency fund. If you just found out you have a new invasive and you need money to do a survey, please reach out and ask us to do stuff and to provide resources to support that effort. So in looking at that, over the past 4 years, we've put a little over $1 million into grants. That's out of a total budget for the Southern IPM Center of $4 million over those 4 years. 45 projects were funded. 27 of those have been completed. The remaining 18, as you can imagine, just a handful of things have been delayed due to COVID and due to having a project in the last year. So there are still 18 on no cost extensions. What we've seen so far out of the 27 that are reporting is kind of what we expect for a lot of our grants, being that a lot of these are seed or working group grants. We're expecting that to be the start of something bigger. And so we've already seen that we've got about a 7-to-1 leveraging of funds that, based off the projects they did working on the Southern IPM Center grant, they've gone on and gotten additional funds in order to continue their work. So doing exactly what we expect the seed and working group projects to do. I highly recommend taking a look through our website at where the different grants are listed. I had a good browse through that. We had projects that you'd expect, like cotton, peaches, and blackberry and blueberry, soybean, sorghum, tomatoes, vegetables, all the stuff you normally get from the southern region, plus some into nursery, urban landscapes, turf, a little bit of work on hemp, work on resistance, work on invasive species, non-native mosquitoes. It's a pretty good portfolio of different areas that IPM's applied into. So we're proud that it's as diverse as it is. In terms of where those projects were, this is actually a breakdown. The first one is who was the project lead by state on top here. So you can see Georgia, Florida, Alabama, North Carolina serving as lead on a lot of those proposals. But when you look a little broader about what institutions are participating, there's a much wider representation of states there. Even some of these going out to Arizona, outside the region. Just because it's a regional project doesn't mean we're asking people to stop at the border. We like it when they can work outside of the region as well. So pretty proud of how that portfolio has come together. And we're looking to continue that on the new IPM Center grant. We also had things recognizing the leaders in IPM. The Friends of IPM program is something that happens every year. Matter of fact, tomorrow is the deadline for the Friends of IPM applications to go in. Recognizing excellent teams, practitioners, professionals, researchers, extension educators, communicators, and now a IPM Hall of Fame achievement, which replaces our Lifetime Achievement Award. We started realizing with all the people in the Lifetime Achievement Award being nominated, to only pick one, especially given the number of people currently retiring, wasn't doing that program the justice it needed to. So we expanded that to the Hall of Fame. a group of folks that, as they've retired, recognizing their lifetime of devotion to IPM and how they've helped advance. And those of you who have been on the advisory council for a long time, you've known our signature programs. We had one on technology, helping biologists with technology so biologists don't have to. In the past 4 years, we supported My IPM, helping them with the fruit and nut app, getting that out and serving their growers with information about what is most effective, expanding that to also serve row crop and serve Hawaii, now expanding out into do vegetables. These very simple field guides that really put the information up front for what people want. We've also been supporting pest monitoring programs through what we offer through EdMaps, providing hosting of about 40 websites for different working groups and initiatives that just need somewhere for the website to be, that they don't have to worry about what happens if the grant doesn't get funded. We help provide continuity for those efforts between programs. We've also been doing a lot in those signature programs with invasive species, where we've had reporting for, you can see the list of number of different pests there, that folks reached out and said, we'd like to take advantage of what you have available through the technology. We want to have maps. We want to have reporting. How can we make that happen? We were trying to take a similar approach with resistant management, allowing people to report where they've seen maybe performance that wasn't up to the standard they're used to seeing and going into investigation on that. That has been slow to develop. You think that information about where a pest is sensitive. Information about where potential resistance may be is even more sensitive for a lot of folks. So we are still working with folks trying to get some of these systems up and running to help know where things are and how to respond to them. And our efforts that are still going on are in diamondback moth and cowpea curculio. We had a signature program on pollinators, which was trying to pull together folks into working groups to address these issues. And as we were trying that, we kept noticing the North Central popping up some really good working groups that were covering the same areas. And as I said, talking about the grants, there's no reason that we were restricting people to just one region. So with those North Central working groups being strong and really covering national scope, we've been leveraging a lot of where those working groups are leading their things. We also had a signature program on underserved audiences. We had plans originally to do grant development, program development with them. And some of the first efforts we had with Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands started off going pretty well, but then they got hit by 2 hurricanes back to back. And Irma and Maria did not do them any favors. And so plans got revised to look at other ways to build partnerships. And so we are still reworking through how we're interacting with underserved audiences to bring that program some success. So when we started looking at our new program, we were looking at this and seeing how can we make this better for the next 4 years. We also started driving our IPM data method a little differently. Many of you have heard of pest management strategic plans. These are documents that describe how a crop is grown and not just what are the best management practices, but actually put growers into a room and ask them, what are you doing? We don't want to know what the best management practices are. We want to know what you're actually doing in the field and where you're having problems. What are your priorities for things that need new solutions? And so by getting that data, it really helps drive forward research and extension initiatives. It helps groups like IR4 when we're talking about a specialty crop to see some of what the priorities may be there. It's also good for directing grants. Previously in doing this, we just put out an announcement and said, hey, anyone wants to do one of these, let us know. Crickets almost every year for saying, hey, would somebody please author these? So with the assistance of USDA's Office of Pest Management Policy, they are giving us a heads up on what registrations are coming up, what issues they're going to be looking at, that it would be really nice if they had current data. And we are making directed requests of individuals saying, hey, we know this is coming from the Office of Pest Management Policy. Would you consider in the next year convening a group to update this document? So Roger and Robin and Lacey have been really offering some excellent services to support those meetings, to help make the effort of gathering all this a lot easier. It's been going very well. And this was an odd slide for me to put together yesterday as we were getting this in. In the past 4 years on the left, we've had some folks that are no longer with the Southern IPM Center. They're not dead. They're still alive. They're still doing well, but they've moved on to other positions. Denisha Seth Carley, who many of you have known as my partner in crime, my co-director, is now director for the Center for IPM at NC State. And so that's taken far more of her time. So she stepped out of the direct day-to-day operations of the Southern IPM Center. Henry Fatimiro left Auburn, went over to Texas, doing excellent things there. Jean-Jacques Dubois went back to work with the EPA. Rosemary Hallberg found an excellent position also at NC State. And Alex Belsis, our programmer, left us after a very long time. I think he even predated me in terms of being at the IPM Center. So with that, it was not going to be a one-man show. That wasn't going to happen. Over the past 4 years, we've started replacing all these staff, and you've gotten to know most of these other individuals. It's been fun working with Roger McGarry over the past several years as the new co-director for the Southern IPM Center. Kayla Watson coming on for communications, Tegan Walker picking up evaluation, Brian Holderman coming on to work with the grant system, Lauren Quavillion coming on to do Friends of IPM, and Lacey coming on to help with various needs for IPM data. And so as we were looking at the new grant, it made sense that when we're looking at our signature programs, when we're looking at how the Southern IPM Center is trying to carry out its day-to-day activities, we needed to change that to reflect this change in staff, the change in people who are now here. So for our new grant, here is the current staff of the Southern IPM Center. And that's taken us into some new directions that are pretty exciting. So for this portion of it, we're actually going to split over, and Roger is picking up on the next section.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. And again, thank you for taking time out to meet with us today. If I can go ahead and keep the slides moving from the old carousel. Just to talk about, we're just going to get into where we're moving in the future. Some of the things are staying the same, like just funding opportunities, but we're also going to be learning on this presentation about our new efforts in IPM recognition, data-driven IPM, and networking. So those are going to be some exciting opportunities that we're going to be talking about not only today, but also in our in-person meeting in a few weeks' time. If I can have the next slide. One thing I just wanted to really highlight was the logic model that we're very grateful for having Tegan Walker on our project, and she's brought a lot of expertise to our center, and she's kind of a genius in terms of putting together logic models, not only in terms of making sense of them, but also in terms of being able to explain them to other people. We recently did IPM gathering webinar where we brought together all the people that were planning to put in a proposal, and she did a fantastic job of explaining how logic models work, and many people on the call had never had that training before. So that has been recorded, and that's available for those who want to see it. Can I have the next slide? Okay. Tegan, were you meant to be presenting this slide, or was this me? I think this might be you.
This was me.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna pass the ball back to you.
Yes, so all things logic model. Just think of me. Um, so when we went to evaluating what we wanted to do for the next 4 years for our new grant, we really decided we wanted to make sure that our focus for the next 4 years maintained on the trajectory of the main goal of our center. And if you look at USDA NIFA's crop protection and pest management program, one of the 3 program areas is the regional coordination program, which we are one of the 4 centers that comprises that program area. They have detailed goals and objectives outlined for their program that we are a part of. So if you break down their interpretation of how we can achieve the goal of a comprehensive IPM approach to sustainable food security. That's the overarching goal. The 3 goals for the regional coordination program that are highlighted here in the middle, those should all be the point that we gather towards when we talk about what we're doing at the center. So all of our focus should be directed towards this overarching goal. So when we developed the logic model, we really started at this point. We didn't start at the other end, which is usually where we start, the inputs and the outputs of what you're actually going to do. But I encouraged everyone to think about the goal of the center first. And so that everything that we said we're going to put into our new project for the next 4 years, we want to make sure that we have this overarching goal in the forefront of our mind. So if you go to the next slide. So one thing that can really help us focus this attention when we're project planning and we're creating our evaluation objectives, and we're really trying to organize our multifaceted regional coordination program that we have here at the center is I like to look at the logic model from starting on the right side and working backwards. So once we have our goals, we know where we're going, then we have to figure out how we want to get there, right? So I don't know if anyone of you remember these little maps that you used to have, these little scavenger hunt maps, like a corn maze that you used to do in school, and you had to find from start to finish. Well, I don't know about you, but I always started on the finish side. I always went backwards. It made more sense to me. You know where you're going to end up, so why not start at that side? It's the same thing that we did for the logic model. So once we had our goals, we worked backwards. Can you have the next slide, please? So once we knew where we wanted to get to, we talked about our outcomes. What changes do we need to see in order to achieve those goals? The logic model separates those goals into 3 outcomes into 3 different categories. We have change in conditions, which is on the far right. We have change in behavior. Next. Which is there in the middle. And then we have change in knowledge. So as we worked backwards, you can see that the number of outcomes grows because we have a better idea of what changes in knowledge we can actually measure, because that's a more shorter term change that we're going to see in 4 years. Our outcomes, once they were determined of what changes we think we need to see in order to achieve our goals, then we talk about how we're going to make those changes happen. Those are the outputs in the logic model. You can see we separated them out. These are the products, the actual tangible items that we're producing. And then we also have our activities in the light green. So once this gets put all together, I have a shortened version of it here for an example. The next. So the completed logic model that you see here is actually only for our new signature programs, the 4 signature programs. in order to make it a little bit more organized for evaluation purposes, we've separated all of the outputs and outcomes into the different program areas so that we can keep track of everything. That's the column that you see there in the light blue. And so this is only half of our logic model. It's a very multifaceted program. But if we go to the next slide, I have broken out just one of those program areas, the grants. And you can see how we have our inputs. They go into our activities and our products, and it all narrows down, it leads the focus, and it's all directing to that overarching goal that we stated in the beginning. So I think, so that was our planning process. Yes, and now we're going to go back to Roger so he can touch on some of the changes that we made.
Okay, thank you, Tegan. So just very quickly, we decided that we abolished term limits. We really value the expertise of the people of you all, and we would like you to stay for as long as you would like to stay. And we would greatly appreciate your contribution. We're also looking into having focus groups. So we know that COVID has introduced a lot of changes. One of those is people are now much more comfortable doing remote meetings, Zoom meetings, for both good and bad. But that, I think, really gives us an opportunity to be able to have some really effective, what I would term focus groups, is concentrating on some of the key issues that we see around the region, such as breaking communication barriers, meeting the needs of the underserved audiences, not just and the illiterate, including those who are digitally illiterate or time challenged, people who are out in the tractor, as they might like to have a podcast rather than a webinar. We'd have another section on IPM Identity, and then a potential focus group topic is on environmental stewardship, eco-efficiency, which we'll be talking about more in the next couple of meetings. But these are not set in stone, but we actually wanted to, we're not trying to top down dictate, hey, these are the specific topics that we're definitely going to have focus groups on. But we're looking to see, to have feedback from you all about what do you see of interest, and how can, what issues are topical in the region, what do we need to bring people together to discuss and to really hammer out. So I think that's exciting to get, get smaller groups of people together to try and really understand what's happening in the region and to get feedback from you all. I'll take the next slide, and I think it's, I know this is still me as well. One thing that I'm, in terms of streamlining operations, we're following kind of the precedent that NEFA have come out with a 2-year RFA, which makes it really super cool for planning purposes. You know when a particular RFA is going to open, when it closes. We've decided to follow that suit. We're actually doing the 4-year RFA. We've got our dates here. It's going to basically open in mid-September and close before Thanksgiving. We didn't want anybody to have to work on the proposal over Thanksgiving. We try to play nice. And we've already gone ahead and scheduled our panel dates right out for the 4 years. And I think this is just going to make it easier. If there's a change in the RFA, we will just go ahead and put it in red, and so people can see if there's a change. But we're trying, based on past feedback, people don't like change. People want to know when things are going to be out, what is happening, and so we're trying to minimize change to the RFA. Just a little plug for IPM, the IPM database. We're grateful for really the expertise of Robin. She does a huge amount of work. We're expecting some really some nice improvements to come out in the next 4 years. We're looking at modifying the database to capture, so we can capture priorities not just from PMSPs, but also from working groups or other funding bodies, commodity boards. We're looking to have to make the database a centralized location for storing priorities for the whole region. We're also looking to make the database work better for producing outputs for our regulatory science network. So when we send out an announcement, we can provide the states with more information about what chemicals used for what pests and crops. And finally, one other thing that's exciting about the IPM database, we're also looking to do a pest-centric PMSP, which normally those are for a particular crop in a particular region. With Diamondback Moth, we're working with David Riley and Hugh Smith, and we're hoping to look to see if we can modify the database so we can have a PMSP that is focused on the pest management needs for a particular pest. So I'm excited about that effort. And I think now that was my last slide. Oh no, this is my last slide. Obviously, I am excited about having the last slide. We're having a few changes to our, these are our new signature programs. Climate change, IPM Identity, Pollinators, early detection, rapid response. So the top two are new, and that's exciting. And I am going to let the next person tell us all about these new signature programs. Thank you. Tegan.
Thank you, Roger. So in our program planning process and creating the logic model and writing our new grant, we did shift a few things around that we wanted to put more focus on for the next 4 years. Some of that has to do with just the change in personnel. We have new people, they have different strengths. We want to highlight those. And then we also, obviously evaluated what the focus that USDA NIFA was charging us with for the future. So one of those things is climate change, and I am leading the signature program. It's basically Climate Smart Pest Management, or IPM, is a cross-sectional approach aimed at strengthening the resilience of agricultural systems in the face of climate change. How easily can growers and systems respond to climate change threats and impacts of climate change? How easily can they bounce back? Those sorts of things. So we're going to be taking a two-phase approach to this signature program to start out with. We want to better understand how climate smart pest management knowledge is currently being shared. And we're going to do that through a round of participatory focus groups that actually will have a national focus, not just with the southern region, because we are collaborating with the 3 other centers for this signature program. From those focus groups, we're going to create a questionnaire about adaptive capacity and send that out to growers and other organizations across the country to try to improve how collaboration across state and organizational boundaries regarding climate smart pest management is currently happening and the needs in order to get that improved. Once we have that data that comes back, we will draft a network development plan for climate smart pest management, and hopefully that will help facilitate the sustainability and the adoption of these climate smart IPM programs.
So the next one that we're going to talk about now, I'm Kayla Watson, by the way, I'm the communication director, if you've never seen me before, is the IPM Identity signature program, which I am co-leading with Roger McGarry, and very excited about this one. I think in the last maybe 5 years or so, people are realizing that physical scientists and social scientists are going to have to work together in order to get things noticed. So this is a social science approach that envisions representative and inclusive voices and experiences in IPM. And it's all working towards forming a cohesive, harmonized, and collaborative IPM identity. So if we go to the next slide, it kind of breaks out I'm going to say 3 parts of it. But what was really bothering me is that when people talk about IPM and trying to get IPM awareness and things like that, it seems like people just get stuck on having the same definition of IPM or the same, I don't know, I've been in so many meetings where people are just sitting there trying to define IPM, and there's so much more to identity than that. So with the signature program, we're going to start with a network analysis that Tegan mentioned, just to make sure that we're not leaving out any voices in the IPM network. So it really focuses on highlighting individuals and groups not being reached or who don't really readily identify as a part of the IPM community. Because another problem that I've been seeing is that people are practicing IPM, but they might call it something different, or they don't even realize that they're practicing IPM. So we're really in this network analysis trying to capture that. And another objective of that is to get get more of the audiences for the This Is IPM campaign, which is the second part. And a lot of people don't realize that communication campaigns are something that you probably come in contact with more than you think. So for example, the Pesticide Safety Education Month has been popular the last couple of years. That's a communication campaign. You may be familiar with the National Invasive Species Awareness Week. That's another one. So this would be very similar to that. The communication campaign would have a dedicated This Is IPM website, messaging about people, settings, and process of IPM. And it's going to be especially focused on underserved, under-resourced, and underrepresented audiences, with a focus on simple and common IPM practices. So at least, bringing in all kinds of people that might not know about IPM, you don't want to get too scientific or too anything like that. You want it to be pretty easy to understand. So all of this is going to include video animations, still animations, IPM toolkits and resources, information about IPM in general, and information about partners. So that's going to be really big. But we're right now just starting the analysis. The actual campaign probably won't start till year 3 or so of the grant. So those two things really go together. But as for the IPM Ambassador Travel Grants, that's something that's actually going on right now. And we kind of have the first call for that as a part of the Friends of IPM Awards, just to kind of put feelers out there and see how many people would be interested in this. But what it is, the IPM Ambassador Travel Grant is funding of up to $1,000 to enable travel to one conference, meeting, or workshop I guess across the grant, but the one that has the deadline of Friday is for this next year. And a maximum of 5 recipients will be awarded each grant year. And what it means to be an IPM ambassador is that we're really looking for people to, if I could find my notes here, to talk about IPM in places that maybe it's not talked about in the way that they're representing. So the IPM roadmap talks about an urgent need to address IPM challenges such as ecological, genetic, economic, and sociopolitical factors. And this would be a way to do that. So you can find out more information about that in the link that Joe just put into the chat. But it's something that we really hope we'll be able to get IPM out to more audiences.
And then I have the pleasure of showing you through the final 2 signature programs. I mentioned Pollinators before, and that in the previous grant, we were following the lead of the North Central IPM Center's working groups. We're continuing that effort because they've really got some excellent work going on. I've got the list of the working groups here. We're also supporting any other efforts for pollinator protection, just to draw awareness to pollinator protection being an important aspect of IPM and being something we care about. But this program is really making sure there's Southern participation in these national and regional working groups. The final one, early detection, rapid response. The programs of technology, invasive species, and resistance management you saw in the last round of the IPM centers. I found that half the time I ever talked about those, leading all 3 of those, I would end up having some very similar topics. We were talking about ways to use the technology to tell people where something is. Who's going to verify that data? Who needs to know about this? How should we put this data to use to direct them to the most effective management available? And whether we're talking about invasive species, resistance to a given active ingredient in any of the disciplines, or even re-emerging pests. It's a pest that's a native pest, but it hasn't been a problem for a long time, but suddenly it starts popping up its ugly little head. We need people to be on the same page and have mechanisms to quickly mobilize groups to detect where it is, what the population's doing, and come up with responses. So whether it's something like this map you have on the left, just talking about county presence and whether you've seen it in previous years, or it's something more sophisticated where you have actual monitoring sites, you can tell when some have exceeded threshold and then see what that population's been doing over time. It's the tools are already built. How do we get them leveraged? How do we help put data first and foremost in these dialogues so that you have the information at your fingertips to make good decisions, as opposed to just going on perceptions of what people think is going out there in the field. So we're continuing a lot of these efforts that were in those 3 signature programs, but rolling it into this early detection and rapid response wrapper. With that, we are continuing to support data collection, archiving, verification, and usage of data. How do we get everything to come together and get everyone on the same page? That doesn't necessarily mean sharing every piece of data publicly, because there are privacy concerns in many cases. But we can respect privacy concerns. We can license data, and we can make sure that everyone's on the same page and it's being put to good use. So that's the signature programs and the structure we've been looking at for this new rendition of the IPM Center. We're pretty excited about it. We're trying to use the strengths, as you can probably tell, of our different team members on here. And we're going to be having our first in-person meeting, which Tegan's going to talk more about.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so that concludes our very brief presentation about what we're planning on doing for the next 4 years with the new grant. But we're also going to have our in-person meeting. It's on November 2nd. If it's not already blocked off on your calendar, please make a note of it. November 2nd, noon to November 3rd at noon. We are holding it in Raleigh. A couple housekeeping things before we talk about what we're going to be doing at that meeting. The deadline for our hotel block is Wednesday, October 12th. That is this Wednesday. So if you don't remember anything else from this hour-long meeting, please remember that if you want your hotel room paid for by us, do it before Wednesday. If you have questions about that or you're confused about where to find that, you can contact Kayla. She is also going to be managing requests for travel support. So if you want your airfare or your mileage reimbursed for coming to our meeting, we are happy to do that for you, but you need to inform us that you're planning on doing that. So please also send that to Kayla by Wednesday. And then just another footnote, if you have any food allergies or dietary restrictions, please also notify that to us. We will be providing you food, but we do not want to cause you any undue harm through those free meals. So please let us know about that. So next slide, in-person meeting. Why are we doing it in person? Well, we really want to see all your lovely faces in person, but there's a bit more to it than that. Most meetings that happen on Zoom or in any other type of virtual setting, it's a lot of being talked at. And we really want to talk with you guys. So we have 3 main agenda items that will be covered over the 2 days. I'm leading the first one. It's the Network Analysis Focus Group for the IPM Identity Signature Program. We have a lot of interactive, participatory, fun things planned for you guys so that we can get a better understanding of the IPM network, why it matters, and what the needs are from this group of people. So we don't want to just dictate what we're doing or decide things on our own. We really need collaborative feedback. And in order to do that, we need an open discussion. And if we're all in the same room, it just makes things so much easier. Day 2, we're going to kind of digest what we did on day 1 overnight. Come back day 2. This is IPM brainstorming. So once the network analysis has been fully developed over the next year, how can we use that to our best advantage and find potential participants? Which communication channels should we use? We've touched on this a little bit when Kayla was explaining the signature program, but we really want more information from you. We want to hear from you as well. I don't like hearing myself talk. I can't speak for everybody else at the center, but really we want to hear from you guys. Other topics, those are the end of day 2. We're going to talk about, Joe's going to talk about the contact and priority databases, how we're trying to revamp those, and what we need in order to do that. Another discussion, brainstorming opportunity. And then we're going to be talking about these focus groups that Roger mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So before we open it up for questions, we have about 15 minutes left. We have a poll. We would really appreciate it if you would respond. The first couple questions are, again, we want to know, are you planning on coming? And if you've made your hotel reservation. If you have not and you are coming, please do that by Wednesday. And then once you answer those 2 questions, you'll actually get a third question. That is just for us to get a feel that if there has been a topic that you've been churning around in your head during the past 45 minutes of hearing us talk, please just pop that into the third question choice. It's going to just any additional topics. You're not committing yourself to anything. It's just to give us an idea if there's something really burning that you would like us to put on the agenda or that we can discuss at a later point. Please add that in there before. I know with me, things just, if I don't write them down, they're just gone forever. So if something is in your head right now, please write it down in that poll.
And Tegan, that's going to actually be a separate poll question because we couldn't do it open-ended with this one. So that's coming up next.
Lovely.
And if you didn't book your hotel room already, don't feel bad. I did mine about an hour ago.
So here's the results of the first poll. Looks like we got about half and half in person and virtual, at least for the folks that are attending here. So I'm going to stop that poll and I will start the next one if you have a focus group topic.
And I think while folks are filling out focus group topics, we could go to questions and feedback and leave that up.
Yep.
So with that, questions and feedback, what do you think of the new, not entirely new, not entirely foreign, something, hopefully you've recognized some elements of what we did with the Southern IPM Center. Questions, comments? And
it looks like we've got 4 additional focus group topics. So I can go ahead and end that poll so we can see what those are.
So the answer's in there, working closer with IR4. We love IR4. We've actually got some things underway, sharing data between systems, which is pretty awesome. And engaging with federal agencies like ARS on issues important to Southern IPM Center, or I just say IPM in general. Okay, well, we've gotten information from you. You know the link to go to book your hotel room if you need it for the in-person meeting. You know where we're headed for the in-person meeting. So if there's no questions or feedback.
Joe.
Yes. Hi, Don.
So it gets too quiet on here. So I just got to make sure that there's some noise. And mostly is FUD alive? I mean, FUD, can you speak to just to know? I mean, you've been too quiet.
I'm here. I got my thing muted because my cell service is not working at the house. And I'm sitting at the convenience store parking lot up here where I can get good cell service on my hotspot on my phone. You hear the trucks going by.
Yeah, that's good cover up, Joe. I'm sure you're out fishing somewhere or something. That's probably.
I am under a shade tree.
I did like the meeting, and you got some very good topics and all. I didn't put the input on the hotel and stuff yet because my schedule got rearranged for me. So I'm trying to verify I'm trying to be there in person though,
Yeah.
but I'm not certain yet.
Excellent.
You need to get that worked out, Parker. We need you there.
Yeah, well, you know, if I do show up, me and you can give them some cultural experience.
I have to admit, it's been fun taking two of our staff that have true social science backgrounds and letting them loose in a program and seeing where it takes us. That's not something we've done nearly to this extent. So I'm really excited to see if when they lead us to the good place. I'm sure there's a good place.
I don't want to hold up everybody's time here, but have y'all had engagement with the National Black Growers Council?
That's one group we have not had engagement with. Most of our engagements with the underserved audiences have been through their extension and research counterparts that we normally have with universities, but the Growers Council would be one to look out to. It's that odd place that the IPM Center sits. We frequently don't work directly with growers. We work with the organizations that serve growers.
Yeah, and that's that is a pretty good group to work with. The executive director right now is a former dean of agriculture at, maybe it was Arkansas State. I can't remember for sure. So he's retired, and they talked him out of retirement to help organizing and move things forward. So that's one that I just want to put on your radar. Be happy to help get you in touch with them.
Very much appreciated. Any other comments, questions? Our grants program is open now. And yes, you can plan ahead for the next 4 years. So I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, I didn't know when the grants were due.
Well, I'm very proud to hear the way that y'all are reaching out to EPA and trying to get input from them on where these updates need to be done. Because that's been a critical thing that I've been a pain about for years. So thank y'all very much for that.
The changeover at OPMP, they've had a whole bunch of new staff come in, and they're releasing now, was it Roger, quarterly? Or is it a little more?
Yeah.
It's a quarterly package of here's what's coming up in the next quarter. We really like you to be aware of. It's like, thank you.
So
Yeah,
Kimberly Neske, who's our OPMP director, is going to be giving a Southern IPM Hour presentation, and Kayla can remind me of that, but that's coming up soon. I think that would be good because that's an organization a lot of people don't know much about them or what they do. So I'm really interested to learn more about them and how we can strengthen our relationship with them.
That's coming up on December 7th. And I will put in the chat a link to all the upcoming IPM hours in case you guys want to register for those.
And you know, that's a critical group because that's, in essence, that's about where these IPM centers started from. Back during FQPA, EPA can reach out to agencies for some of that engagement, but they couldn't reach out to all the universities and everything. So that's what started trying to create the IPM centers in regions to help OPMP have that network out to the whole group. So it's a critical role that's played there.
Don, you and the advisory council members might be interested in an article that Robin wrote that's actually has a lot about the history of the development of PMSPs and crop profiles. It talks a lot about the early role of OPMP and getting that started, and that Robin, I don't know if we could send out that link, have Kayla send out the link to that article, send out the PDF, but that's a good resource also.
One thing too that especially some of the newer members of the council may not appreciate, and it took me a while to learn after I got on, as long as I've been here, is how much those federal agencies use our PMSP data and our work group data to make some of their plans. And if we don't have current information in those plans, they don't have current information to make their plans as far as pesticides and other things like that that we're going to need to take care of our crops.
Yeah, thank you, Fad. And we've been really trying to help because we know that the university corporations are being asked to do more and more, and so we know they're under pressure. So one reason we hired Lacey Bellinger, or if you could just say hi, Lacey. She's actually on the team to specifically help coordinate, help our university colleagues. She's doing things like entering data, providing lists of missing information so we can get these documents updated. So we're very grateful for both her and Robin for helping us get more of these documents in the pipeline.
If you need any help from Cotton, let me know.
Okay, we might very well take you up on that sooner rather than later.
Well, I've been talking with Cotton Incorporated for a couple of years. We're trying to figure out how to address that some more. So we are interested.
Excellent. And I think there's a lot to be gained from, from looking at what's, because I think our last PMSP was 2007. That was for Texas. So there's definitely a need for an update.
Yeah, I just tell you that, so I'm also with Cotton Foundation. We're going to set some money aside that some of y'all may know Cater Haight, but he's in Cotton Incorporated, been over the agronomic, vice president of agronomic group there for years. Cater is planning retirement. And I told him I know that he can't really retire. He'll get too bored. So we're already having a discussion about him taking on a task of trying to write something like a cotton PSP, whatever you call it, but like writing that, but breaking it into regions. It may not get to state, but trying to capture regional differences.
Okay, that's awesome. We actually, that's really fantastic. I didn't know that. We actually did have a conference call with Caitlin and Kevin Bissonnet and Ryan.
Ryan Kurtz, yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Kurtz. Yeah, they didn't mention that. So that's an awesome tip that we would love to follow up on. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us for this update. We're pretty proud of how this all came together, and we're looking forward to working with you all as we put these plans into action. Have a great rest of your week and try to stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.